welcome in, guys. If you guys are here, you guys subscribe to the webinar. So thanks for being here. And today we're really going to talk about Rekesh's journey as what I like to call a Henry. If you guys aren't familiar with Henry, it stands for high earner, but not rich yet. I guess you're not really a Henry. You're actually rich now. So you're kind of like the goal, right, of every Henry, right? And that's why I have you on today, because you've been through the cycles, you've been through the entire journey at this point. And you've been living out the Henry method, which is basically, rely on the high W-2 income, just keep investing it into real estate, use the real estate to help you pay less taxes, and just keep rolling over those tax savings into more and more properties. So we're going to talk more about Rekesh's journey, how he's built his portfolio, and what he's doing now with assisted living, and why he thinks that's the move. I mean, he bought one property, and he's going to go into the details of that one property. It's going to blow you guys' mind. So welcome, Rekesh.
Thank you, Michael.
And maybe you can give us just a quick introduction. I usually don't like to start with long introductions, but maybe a quick introduction about, what your portfolio looks like now. What do you do from your job, and kind of what your journey's been so far in maybe a minute or so.
Sure. Yeah. So thanks for having me, Michael. I'm a W-2 employee for the last 24 years at the same company. I started buying real estate in 2009, started with a single family home. Over the last 15 years, have built a portfolio of 36 rental properties, or 36 doors across multi-states, Hawaii, Tennessee, Arizona, and California. Started with the long-term rental space, got into short-term rentals when I was trying to get some tax savings there. And then recently my wife became a real estate professional. And so now we're getting into assisted living homes, and not getting into, but we have been for the last year. So that's kind of at a high level where I'm at in my journey with real estate.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, 36 doors is a lot. I feel like that should be good enough. I mean, if you pay off that portfolio, I mean, you're sitting on pretty decent passive income right there alone. But the assisted living is actually that is actually insane. And just to give you guys a quick look, or a quick little foreshadowing, I guess, of that assisted living, so that you guys stick till the end. The assisted living is basically like a facility for elderly people who need assistance with living. It's called the assisted living facility. And you basically provide a home for them with caretakers, and you basically charge them per room. I think last time I spoke to you, you said that, well, you just renovated the whole house, and you said that you're going to be charging around $9,000 per room in a 10-bed facility. So you're looking at, correct me if I'm wrong, about $90,000 gross income on one 10-bed facility. Is that correct?
Yeah, the last time we met, actually, I was still kind of looking for a property. I haven't found one yet. And then I found one in December of 23, renovated it. So it's now a licensed 15-bed facility. It's 10 bedrooms. 5 rooms are private, 5 rooms are shared. But yeah, a private room goes for $9,500 a month. A shared bed, or a shared room, well, a shared bed goes for $6,500. The entire shared room goes for $13,000 if you put 2 people in there.
Insane.
Yeah, and so we have 15. We're licensed for 15 residents. We just got licensed about a month ago. October 2nd was our license date. It took us 10 months to get licensed and all the renovations to happen. But we're at 4 committed residents right now. And again, we're only 4 weeks in, but we have a couple other that are ready to move, sign and move on.
Yeah. And I think we're going to talk about that kind of towards the back end of this webinar, because I think it's super interesting. I mean, I know a lot of people transitioning to that space who are very interested in it now. I think it's kind of like the new thing. It's like starting to come up. But we'll talk about that more. But I want to talk a little bit about, how you got here, and kind of what your learnings were, and why you ended up eventually getting into the assisted living space. Your portfolio right now, it's 36. Is it mostly duplex single family, or is it more like fourplexes, or what?
Yeah. So my properties in Arizona are mostly single family homes. That's kind of where I started in 2009. And then my properties in Hawaii are mostly multifamily, 5-plex, duplex, triplex, stuff like that. And so, yeah, I've been kind of getting more into the multifamily space. And if I were to look back at my journey, that's kind of what I probably would have done, for a variety of reasons. The main thing is cost segregation. And Michael, I know you've talked a lot about this on your channel and your videos, but if you have one property and you have 4 doors, that's 4 kitchens, that's 4 bathrooms and toilets and all of these things that you can accelerate depreciation on. And so if I were to look back and look at myself in 2008, 2009, I would be focusing more on higher occupancy type buildings, just like assisted living is right now. That's a high occupancy building. I mean, I have 15 people living there, will have, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I want to go back because usually, for most investors, you don't just have a set plan from day one and execute on that plan. It always kind of evolves over time as you become more experienced and you kind of realize what you like and don't like. I'm kind of at that point where I've been buying single families, but it's like a lot of investors say, it's very slow. And so now we are actually under contract for a duplex now, which we're going to be doing student housing for, and we're kind of renting by the room. So we're kind of making slow progression. I didn't think I was ever going to get into the multifamily space, but who knows? Maybe next year we were actually looking at like 6plexes and stuff like that, but it didn't work out. But can you maybe walk us through kind of like a timeline of your strategy and how it evolved over this, like your 20-year career as a real estate investor? Because you start off with single family. It sounds like you kind of got into small multifamily, but then you mentioned multifamilies in Hawaii. So, and then now you're at assisted living. So what was like the turning point in your head that made you switch strategies, right? From single family to multifamily, and then from multifamily to assisted living, maybe.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, 2008, 2009, money was cheap. Loans were cheap, right? You could get homes for 3-4% interest rates. And so, you could buy properties for super cheap in Arizona. And so that's what I did. I was buying 2 or 3 properties a year.
Just off the MLS.
Just having Redfin search criteria, going direct to the listing agent, locking in properties as soon as they hit the market, and already have done the math ahead of time to say, all right, well, this property is this is what the mortgage would be, this is what property management would be, this is what it would rent for, and just sort of just acquiring debt really fast, right? Maxing out my DTI essentially, and then moving over to my wife, and then kind of buying properties on her name. And so we're able to kind of tag team acquiring properties at a fast rate. We both had to work super hard and keep working, overtime, 50, 60 hours a week to continue to have the income to support all the loans that we were getting. But that's kind of what I was doing, between 2008 to right before COVID. I was just buying single family homes in that market. Then COVID happened and things changed, right? For all of us, right? And so I started trying to figure out, well, what else can I do, because this market is getting a lot harder. And so, these single family homes are not going to cut it anymore. And so
they just don't cash flow.
Yeah. It's like, the property prices went up and then the rates went up and things just weren't as lucrative as they used to be. And so I was like, I need to keep buying real estate, but I need to figure out a better kind of way to do this. And so I started buying single family homes in Hawaii for a couple reasons. Number one, the property tax, is the lowest in the entire country, believe it or not. And number two, the rents are very similar to California, very high rent. And so what I ended up doing was buying these single family homes, but converting them into multi-unit buildings. And so I would, convert a 2-story home into multiple units. And this is all through permits and the county and things, but, things get charged based off of number of bedrooms you have in Hawaii. And so, a lot of these 4-bedroom homes that were on the MLS, I converted to 8 or 9-bedroom homes, different lock-offs and units and all that. So pretty much like, one building now grosses $13,000 a month on a $3,000 mortgage payment. You know what I mean?
That's absolutely insane. Wait, say that again. Hold on. $13,000 on a $3,000 mortgage.
Yep.
So one property, you're making $10,000 passive income.
Pretty much, yeah. And that, again, that
You're
was
have
only
some expenses and stuff, but
was only because number one, this was right before the rates weren't 7%. I'm locked in at a 2.875 on a 30-year on that. I put 10% down. Purchase price was $700,000. I did put a couple $100,000 in reno. So let's be fully transparent on some of that stuff. But yeah, if you look at the balance sheet now, my mortgage is $3,000.
Wow.
I have property management fees. But yeah, cash flowing
So
about 10.
let's talk about financing. So for the single family homes, for that kind of first part of your journey, was that all conventional loans?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
All
so all
conventional,
conventional loans,
20%
those are like kind
down.
of like the that's the bread and butter. That's kind of like the most typical one that you would use as an investor. That one really depends on kind of your W-2 income, and that's a great part about being a Henry is that you're like the perfect candidate to get conventional loans. So right now, I think we have 6 conventional loans under my name, or is it 5? 5. And I've been doing it all under my name, and like you said earlier, you first did it all under your name and then your wife's name. So you never bought or put your name, both your wife and yourself, on a loan, because if you do that, you're kind of tainting both of your DTIs. So it sounds like you maxed out your own personal DTI, and then once you were like tapped out, no banks would lend to you anymore. Then you go over to your wife and you say, "Hey, wife, do you want to put your name down on these loans?" And then she can get another 10. And then for these Hawaii properties, you're really looking at, it seems like, hard money. And then what after that? Are you
No,
rolling
I mean,
refinancing or?
a lot of them. So the whole 10 limit is actually very flexible if you talk to the right lender, right? And so, a lot of them have these portfolio loans that are really great. A lot of the credit unions are flexible. So if you talk to the right lender, that 10 property limit is actually pretty loose, right?
Yeah.
They also look at your income. And so if you're justifying on your taxes that I had all those rentals in Arizona in addition to my W-2, if you're showing them that, look, I'm making a ton of money here, a lot of times these underwriters can back out that depreciation that you're claiming and approve your loan, even though you have 10 finance properties.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Okay. So then after the Hawaii properties, where were you at after that? So how many of those did you do?
We did nine properties in Hawaii, and
Same strategy, just like renovating, adding a ton more rooms.
Yeah, we pretty much tried to do burrs, but a lot of them, like some of them we couldn't do burrs. So I was able to do burrs on a couple of them, but then, then everything started going up. The rates started going up, and it became harder to do that. And so that's when I kind of shifted, and I, was on TikTok one day and saw some feeds around assisted living and how that was the future. And I just started educating myself on the space, and that's kind of where it all started.
Yeah. I actually heard about assisted living from one of my followers. He scheduled a consultation call with me, and he's like, "Have you looked into assisted living?" Because he was a lender and he would lend on these assisted livings, and they would show financials to him. And he was like, these financials are absolutely bonkers. Like, they're just completely bonkers, and you need to look at this. Right. So I looked at it, and sure enough, like some of these properties, one of them are like profiting like $40,000. I think that's kind of like the flagship number that every assisted living operators like throwing out there. It's like one property profit $40,000. Your facility is probably going to hit that, if not more. So we'll talk about that more in a second. So from the Hawaii properties, it sounds like was the next move now assisted living?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I did do an Airbnb in the middle. I forgot to mention that. I kind of brought in a partner because my DTI was getting tough, and I needed someone else to get the loan. So I actually brought in a partner for that one. And that was before we had rep status with my wife. And so we needed to do the short-term rental loophole. And so we bought a fixer in the Smoky Mountains right before the Smokies became the hot destination it is now. It did phenomenal the first couple years, and then it's gotten soft this year. So 2022 and 23, it did great. I think 2022 we did like probably 160. We grossed 160. We probably netted.
What was the purchase price?
440. I think
440 grossing 160.
440. We dumped about 250 in reno, and then we bird it, so it appraised for 1.1.
Holy crap! Okay.
We bird it, and we locked in. We did a HELOC on the equity, and we kept the first position at 2.75, and then we did a HELOC on the burr, and so that one had 4%. And we pulled everything out, and mortgage is about probably, I think it's like $2,800 a month on that.
That is absolutely insane.
Yeah, we were hitting like peak summer. We were hitting like 15,000 a month.
I mean, you're all in for like 650 or so, and that thing's pulling in. I mean, even if it pulls in like I mean, 150, that's amazing. There's something called the 20% rule in the short-term rental space, which is if you can get 20% of the purchase price in gross income, then that's a very high performing property. So $1 million property, you should be looking at $200,000 of gross income. And you're sitting at like 25% almost, right? So or somewhere around that ballpark. So that's crazy. Crazy numbers. I didn't know you'd actually had the short-term rental, so that's new.
Yeah, I just have one. I mean, that was when the strategy when my wife wasn't a real estate professional, and I was like, all right, we gotta keep going all in on STR, but then we moved to reps, and that wasn't needed anymore.
Yeah. If you guys follow me at all, you guys know I talk about two main strategies: the short-term rental loophole. And reps, which is real estate professional status. So me and Rekesh are one of the lucky ones who actually have real estate professional status. But both of the strategies basically do the same thing. It allows you to basically pay a lot less federal income taxes on your W-2 job. So I think, Rekesh, maybe you can share a little bit about like what your tax bill kind of has looked like for the past couple of years with real estate professional status, because you're just basically buying properties, especially the assisted living, right? You put that into service this year. I mean, what is that going to do for your taxes this year?
Yeah,
with
assisted living
professional status.
Yeah, so reps has been part of our life for about 3 years now, 2.5, something like that. And yeah, our AGI is well, this year was actually a little excessive. We're actually negative AGI this year. But yeah, but last year, we were between 40 and 50,000 AGI, and then the year prior to that was like 60. So it essentially accelerates. It wipes out your entire W-2, and it wipes out any of your profit that you would technically make from your rentals. The problem with that, especially living in California, is that California doesn't recognize depreciation, and so you're still paying California tax for the most part. But
because you file two tax returns, you got the federal side and you got the state side. Bonus depreciation, which this whole real estate professional status, it kind of depends on this concept of bonus depreciation, which again, I talk a lot about in the Henry investor community. But that is kind of going away slowly, bonus depreciation. And the fact that you were able to reduce your AGI to negative this year is absolutely insane. Was it just that one property that you bonus depreciated?
No, we actually had a couple costs. So the assisted living is actually going to be cost seg next year.
Oh, wow.
The CPA actually advised to just wait on that one because that one's pretty massive.
Yeah.
So we did 2 cost segs this year. Plus I had a car that I did 179 on. So those 3 things essentially put us in the negative bracket.
Wow. Okay. Wait, so did you buy 2 other properties this year, or are you cost segging a rental property that you held on to for a while and you're now just claiming bonus?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So I kind of withheld putting it on my taxes. I withheld 2 of them because I knew I was going to need to cost seg them, but I also had the depreciation on the other one, so I left it off my taxes. And then I strategically did that so I could use it for this year. And then I kept the assisted living in my back pocket in case I needed it, but the CPA was like, you don't need it. So we'll use that for next year and just kind of roll it over.
Guys, Rekesh is just like on another level. He just like, he basically treats his rental properties as like ammunition for paying no taxes. And he's just like got them in his back pocket. Anytime he needs tax savings, he just pulls out a rental property that he has, claims bonus depreciation on it. And then the losses from that rental property just wipe out his W-2 income from the last, 3 years using real estate professional status. The thing is, 95% of people that I talk to, their wife is not a real estate professional, and so they can't use real estate professional status on their tax return. So that's why we talk about the short-term rental loophole, right? You were saying, the year that I didn't have real estate professional status, I had to do the short-term rental loophole because, again, those are really the 2 main strategies that's going to be able to allow you to like wipe out your W-2 income. And I see why you did the Smokies too, because Smokies is the land values is so cheap there, so you get a lot of tax benefit for the property price. Right now, 2024 and going into 2025, I know the presidential election is going on like right now. Donald Trump is the one who enacted the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which brought bonus depreciation up to 100%. And again, this whole strategy, whether it's short-term rental loophole or real estate professional status, they both rely on bonus depreciation. It's the core piece of this strategy of paying no taxes on your W-2. Without bonus depreciation, me and Rekesh would be paying the full amount of federal income taxes, unless you, for the most part. So it's so central. And so we're going to see what happens with that maybe next year and going forward. I guess my main question is, most of the people watching this haven't done their first deal. You were talking about when you first started your journey, you were buying, off the MLS. Ooh, just pick one and buy it, and from day one it's going to cash flow. But we're in a completely different market today. I've been looking at those type of properties and none of them cash flow. Like, I've never found a single family home even that's over the price of $200,000 that cash flows from day one. If you just buy it with 25% down, conventional loan, it's not going to cash flow. I have not found any. So we're in a completely different era. And so the question that I have for you is, what would you be doing if you had to start over from today? Let's say you're a software engineer, you're recently married. Let's say you're making $300,000 a year and you don't have any rental properties. Let's say you have $100,000 in savings. What's the move?
I mean, I'm biased now, and just considering I'm in the assisted living space, I love that space. I think financial freedom is there with even just one assisted living facility. There's people out there that say you could do the same with a short-term rental as well, but I think you're going to profit way more than on an assisted living memory care type facility. The problem, not a problem, it's actually a good problem, is that the barrier to entry is very high. And it's not something that most people want to even get into. And that's why I love it, because short-term rental, it's so easy. I mean, you have companies that literally turnkey properties for you, right? You have these kids that are arbitraging things, and it's just flooded. The market is flooded. You are putting your investment in the hands of, the city or the neighborhood or the state, and if they make one small change, your entire business is, on its head. So, I feel like assisted living is safe. It's planning for the future. And honestly, if you look around in your community, I would highly recommend looking around your community and see what some of these areas are developing into. You will see assisted living and memory care facilities popping up everywhere. And if these guys are spending multi-million dollars building these fancy places, that's where you should be investing your money. So
yeah, gotta backwards engineer it. Everybody does something for a reason. And these facilities are popping up a lot. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, here's the thing. I think assisted living has a higher barrier of entry because it's much more process heavy, right? You have a lot of liability. People are scared of liability when it comes to older people, right? They might pass away in your facility. They say that your customer, when you start an assisted living facility, is actually not the elderly patients who stay at your place. It's their family, because their family is going to have expectations about how you treat the elderly people who stay in your facility, right? And so there's a lot of procedures. You have to manage employees, caretakers. You have to have an extra layer of management, right? I think you just hired one. I think another concept that Christina just mentioned is sober living, and you also mentioned that. But I think before we were right before we went live with this webinar, we were just talking a little bit about other forms of investing that kind of produce higher cash flow. And I think you mentioned sober living was one of them. Assisted living was another one. I think you mentioned pad split, which is kind of rent by the room, which is kind of similar to what I'm doing, student housing. And was there any other ones besides that? I mean, I think the main point we're trying to make here is that it just doesn't work anymore to just buy these single family homes, long-term rental them out, and then expect some sort of crazy cash flow. And so, if that's not the strategy, then what else is there? What do you think about the short-term rental space, mid-term rentals?
I think those are all fine, right? I think they're good for now. If you can get some bonus depreciation out of them, great. If you have a high W-2, I think it's good. You have to look at it from what you're getting in the moment, right? So it may not be high cash flow, but at least you'll get that tax savings. And if you can wipe out your entire income and you get a huge check back from the IRS, you don't look back, right? Who cares if you make $1,000 a month? You just got a huge tax savings that should be well enough for you to be okay, right? But when you couple tax savings plus cash flow, that's where when you win, right? You have to be able to kind of do both. I don't think there's any problem getting into short-term rentals and mid-term rentals for W-2 employees. I just think there is a little bit of a risk, future proof wise, because I don't think you can count on that 100%.
Well, let me ask you a question. The short-term rental space, the whole idea of the short-term rental loophole, now that I'm thinking about it, is that you have to classify that business as an active business.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what you're doing is you're running an assisted living facility. I would argue that you are materially participating in that assisted living.
Yeah.
Is there something sort of like the assisted living loophole where you can claim bonus depreciation on the assisted living, which you are materially participating in? That would qualify it as an active business. And then when you bonus or claim bonus depreciation on it, those losses should be non-passive. And then you should be able to use non-passive losses to offset your W-2. Do you think that is, I feel like it kind of makes sense. Like maybe I need to ask a CPA.
Yeah, I think a CPA,
the whole point with the short-term rental loophole.
Yeah, I mean the short-term rental loophole is unique because it's not only that, but it's the average stay of less than 7 days and all those things. These residents that are in my facility, they're there forever. There's not a 7-day requirement. So I think that's the only thing you'd have to check. But this is like a legitimate business, just like you would own a car wash or a laundromat or whatever. Like assisted living is a legitimate business, and you reap the tax benefits of whatever that is, just like you would have a normal business.
So 2 quick questions for you. Rekesh, you still work at your W-2 job, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so Thomas asked that question. And then the other one was, maybe you can tell us, backing up a little real quick, I don't want to go off topic too much here because we want to talk about the assisted living for a little bit, but you mentioned, you're kind of pulling out of your pocket these 2 rental properties from, I don't know when you bought them, but it seems like you're just kind of pulling them out this year and you're kind of playing that card, right? Yep. And you're saying, okay, I haven't claimed bonus depreciation on these properties yet, so I'm going to play these 2 cards and I'm going to claim bonus depreciation on them this year. Maybe you can run us through some very rough numbers about like what your losses look like when you claim bonus depreciation on those 2 properties, and then how much you can round up or round down quite a bit, just to give us a very, very rough idea about like how much losses those 2 properties, what their purchase prices are, and then what losses are you going to generate, roughly speaking, from those 2 properties that's going to reduce your W-2 income.
Everything is based off of purchase price and then what you kind of put into the renovation, right? So, I had 2 properties. The one in Hawaii I bought for $525,000. I put technically $600,000 in renovations. I burned all of that, but that was the kind of cost basis. They had to back out land off the 525. The other property was in Phoenix, Arizona. Purchase price was $200,000. I put in $400,000 in reno on that one. So both of those combined gave me approximately $400,000 in like a depreciation that I could put against my W-2. And then I had $120,000 for a Model X that I bought as well. And so all of that combined gave me, approximately $450,000 loss that I used against my income. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's just, everybody understands the car bonus depreciation, but you're basically doing the same thing when you buy a rental property, right? Mm-hmm. Slightly different, but like similar concept, right? I was thinking that you might have bought a G-Wagon or something. That seems to be a popular one, but you went with the Model X. Is the Model X over 6,000 pounds?
Yeah, it's like barely over. It's like 6,005, something like that. Yeah. Elon's a very smart man.
Yeah. That's good. That's smart. Okay. I always wondered. That's a huge strategy, guys. I don't know if you guys caught that, but he's reducing his taxable income by $120,000 by buying that Model X. At the highest tax bracket, that's going to save you like 40 grand, 30% of a $120,000 purchase price. Well, at the highest tax bracket is 37. So you would probably be saving like 50 grand in taxes. Like literally imagine getting a $50,000 check back from the IRS when you file your taxes because you bought a $120,000 car. It's absolutely insane, right? And that's why you have to understand what bonus depreciation is, because it applies not just to real estate, but also to this car that you use for business purposes. We're 32 minutes in, so I want to leave maybe like 20 minutes at the end here for Q&A. So let's talk about the assisted living. I kind of foreshadowed it at the beginning of this call. Like, I mean, you even blew my numbers out of the water when you said that it's actually not a 10 unit facility. It's actually 15. Which only means that the gross income is going to be even higher. So maybe you can start from the beginning and tell us, like, how'd you get this deal and what are the numbers? Like, how did you underwrite it? And like, what was your expectations going into it? And then like, where are you at right now?
Yeah. So like I said, I was on TikTok started seeing some stuff around assisted living and it kind of being the future and so I just kind of connected with some people that are in the space and essentially got a mentor that helped me through
Yeah.
or answered a lot of my questions.
Yeah. The
And
same guy
so
that I've been listening to, Ramon, right?
yeah,
It's crazy that
really.
you're one of the only people that takes financial advice from TikTok, which is crazy.
Well, yeah, I've since deleted TikTok, Michael. We'll talk about that on a different day, but I've learned so much from it. But anyways, he was actually in this space and is still in the space, and
Mhm.
he actually came across the property that I own now. It just needed a lot of capital, a lot of holding costs, and he just wasn't in the position to do so.
Mhm.
And so I pretty much said, hey, are you cool if I try to target it and move forward? And so I worked directly with the agent for literally 4 months to try to get the purchase price lowered. They had it listed for 2.2, ended up acquiring it for 1.6. So bought it in December of 23. It had all the
Less than a
foundational,
year ago. I
yeah, it
remember
had
you
all the
called me and you
yeah,
were like, "Hey, should I sub two this? Right? Should I pitch sub
yeah,
two?" I was at the airport. I was like, "Dude, Rekesh, you're crazy, man! Like, you just
yeah.
learned about assisted living like literally 3 months ago, and you're already like putting offers on an assisted living facility, man. Your bias for action is just crazy, and that's the impression I got when you called me in the airport that day. But go ahead,
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah, no. So, it used to be a facility in the past. And so that's why I liked it. And it also had a permit, grandfather permit to allow more than 6 residents. So the thing with California, everybody needs to know is that you can do a 6-bed facility without needing to ask your neighbors or ask the city. Anything over 6, you need to get a special permit, and that permit can take a while, depending on what city you're in and whatnot. So what I loved about this place was that there was a 15 an occupancy limit of 15 already in place that would be grandfathered over to me, which was a huge hurdle that I already overcame before even buying the place. It already had the fire sprinklers. It was a previous facility. It had everything I needed. And so it just needed a lot of work. And so bought it in December, took about, at the same time, I applied for my licensure and got that ball rolling with the social services department, and then also applied for a building permit for all the reno. Just worked super hard for the last 9 months, getting all the reno done, getting all my permits and my inspections and licensure. I got it to the point where it was ready, not furnished yet, and that's when I called the appraiser. So probably when I was about a month from completion, I applied for a refinance. So I had the note at 7.75%, 30-year fixed, 20% down. A month before completion, I applied for a refinance. Well, 45 days prior, I applied for a refinance, floated the rate, waited until like we were done, but not furnished to get the appraiser out there, and got the appraiser out there. Acted like it was not a facility. It was more like of a residence type of thing. And the appraisal came back at 3.125. Then the rates dropped a little bit. It was like a short period of time where the rates dropped. So I just got super lucky with that. Bird out about 350,000 of that. And then refinance the rest kind of thing. And then, yeah, we got licensed about 4 weeks ago.
So just to go over the numbers real quick. So 3.1, let's say you bought it for 1.6. You put how much in renovations into it?
About 600,000 in reno.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we bought for 1.6. You put 600K in. You're at 2.2, and it appraised
Yep.
for 3.1.
Yep.
It's a spread of $900,000 of equity that you put in sweat equity. So you're telling me that you built $900,000 of sweat equity in
Yep.
that from December until basically now.
Yep.
You got it up and running like just a couple of weeks ago. So, I mean, that's insane by itself, right? Like you've mastered this building that sweat equity, right? I don't think I talk about it too much because a lot of properties I buy are turnkey, right? But I think that's like kind of like the next level, right? If you can get that sweat equity and then the tax benefits and then the cash flow, that's like the trifecta. I feel like I haven't really been doing the sweat equity thing, but I've been thinking maybe I'll get there soon. So now you got this up and running. You left a good amount of money when you refinanced. So this thing is, maybe you can break down the numbers a little bit now. Like, what are your monthly payment or monthly expenses going to be? What are they going to look like? And then what are the numbers going to look like for this property?
I mean, if we're talking full occupancy, 15 residents, 5 private, 5 shared rooms, it should gross a little over 100,000 a month.
That's insane. On one
Expenses.
property.
Yeah. And that's kind of what, in order to continue to invest in residential real estate, you have to have high grossing properties, and that's why assisted living is so attractive. That's why sober living is attractive, because you have a lot of buffer, right? But at the same time, and I think someone's asking a question around costs, right? Thomas, like there are significant costs, right? My mortgage payment's $10,000 a month, right? My food costs are like $3,000, a month. My labor is between 20 and 25,000 a month, right? So, I mean, all in, at 15 residents, I'll have about $50,000 in expenses per month.
Still.
But if I'm grossing 112, 100,000, let's just say on the lower end at 15, I should be netting, between 45 and 50,000 a month.
And that's exactly insane. Like, that is exactly why we talk about assisted living. It's a one and done deal, man. I mean, most people's goals is just to get to $10,000 passive income. You did it with one deal in about 10 months, which is absolutely insane. And the crazy part is you only learned about assisted living like middle of last year. I remember we talked about it before, guys, because I met Rekesh on TikTok, and we talked about it in the last YouTube video that I made, which was like probably a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago. So it's still a relatively new concept for you, but it looks like you crushed it. And I mean, that's why I wanted to have you on today. But so I guess maybe we can go into a little bit into some of the questions here. So I guess the first question is like, who's paying for these rooms, and like what does that look like, right? Because I know that they have multiple options when they pay for these rooms, because a lot of these elderly people, they will have Medicare, or they have a private payment, which is not using Medicare. So maybe you can talk about like the payment structure and like what that looks like.
Yeah, for my facility, I accept 2 types of payment. Obviously, private pay for someone that just wants to pay out of pocket. A lot of these families, or a lot of the residents have sold their personal residences that they've had for 30 years or more, and so they have a boatload of cash just sitting there. So that's the first type. The second type is people that have long-term care insurance, Transamerica or some of these other places. They've bought into their this situation, right? And so the way that works is they usually cover a certain amount per month. Usually it's between $6,000 and $7,000 is what I've seen, and then the remainder is up to the family to pay. They make the payment to the family, but the payment is only made if the assisted living facility, like myself, submits the right paperwork to prove that this resident needs to have assisted care. So that's kind of how we work it out usually with the families.
Okay. And then what about, oh, by the way, we're in the Q&A section now. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. One of the questions is kind of related to licensing and for this facility. So what does it look like to license? Like, what do you need to do in order to get this thing actually up and running?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. One of the main things is a fire clearance. You need to make sure your facility is compliant with the fire codes. So you need to kind of have a fire inspection done. There's a very lengthy application you need to fill out. I think it's like 200 pages long, lots of documentation. There's an interview you have to do. There's a lot that goes into it. There's companies that do all of that for you. They charge a hefty fee, but you kind of have to, there's a checklist that you have to go through and essentially provide whatever the state kind of asks you to provide.
And then what about referral agencies? Like, do you use referral agencies? Are basically, they find people to stay at your facility, and then they take like a certain percentage, right? But are you using referral agencies at all to fill those beds?
Yeah, all of my residents right now have come from placement agents,
Oh,
they're
wow.
called. Yeah, and it's mostly because I still work my W-2 and I haven't really been able to focus on spending a lot of time there marketing myself and things of that sort.
Yeah.
So I am kind of paying them a fee to find a lot of these people, but they're good because they do a lot of the background work for you already, right? They make
Yeah.
sure that, this resident has enough money and all those things. So they're actually very, very helpful.
Yeah, and I will say, guys, Rakesh is a special breed. Okay, he's doing this all with the W-2. I cannot fathom how he's been able to do this because your facility is like 2 hours away from where you live, right? 2 or 3 hours, 5
5 hours.
hours.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So he's managed the entire renovation. You're talking about a $700,000 renovation, which is like a complete gut job, pretty much. And he's been managing that from 5 hours away. He's been hiring caretakers. I think you hired did you hire an administrator for the care facility?
Facility manager. So I'm still the
Facility manager.
administrator, but I have a facility manager. Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah. So even finding the right people, that takes a lot of time, a lot of phone calls. You had a leak during your renovations that you had to like do an insurance claim for. You had to do all that. And maybe you can talk a little bit about the downsides because I know we were talking about this before, and you were maybe talk about the impact that it had on your family and your lifestyle during these past 10 months. Like we were talking about all the great things, but let's talk about that.
Yeah, there's nothing passive about any of this stuff, and people that say real estate investing is passive, they're totally wrong, right? I mean, there were some very dark days where I was away from my family for weeks at a time. I was sleeping on the floor in this facility during the middle of construction. Like it was really hard. Now, it's all set up and good, and I have the staff, and I can look back and be proud of what I built. But it literally took everything I had out of me. It was very difficult to have conversations with my kids and my wife when I was gone for all these months. I missed a lot of the things that were important, but now you can look towards the future and pretty much look back and have the rest of your life back. It was a 10-month commitment, but now you have the rest of your life to pretty much look back and kind of coast, if that's the right term.
Right. I think that one of the biggest questions that's surrounding assisted living is liability, right? You might have a grandma or grandpa fall, break their hip bones, which is very common. Mm-hmm. What do you do about that?
Yeah, I mean, insurance is not your regular homeowner's insurance, and that's part of the cost I told you, right? You have a lot of costs that go into this, a lot of operating expenses. You're not going to qualify for regular homeowner's insurance. You're going to need a commercial property policy. No homeowner's place is going to cover you. You're going to need professional commercial liability insurance because you have a business, and that has to be at a $1 million, $3 million mark. So there's a lot, and I got a quote for my commercial policy. It's $13,000 a month just for the commercial, and then my home is another $13,000 a year. Sorry, did I say month? I meant a year. $13,000 a year for the property because it's in a fire zone and nobody wants to cover my property because of the value. $26,000 in insurance a year. All of these things are the reasons why we charge so much, per month, right? Per bed.
Yeah.
Caregivers are expensive. Everything is very costly. And so there's a reason why we have to charge these rates.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are doing food. You guys are helping them out with their daily tasks, medication. You guys are helping out with you guys plan activities, like a lot of activities from what I hear, right? It's like a daily thing.
Care isn't cheap at all. To have someone watch you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in California is not cheap. And so to be able to provide that, give you a nice place to live, food, everything, that costs money.
Dishwashers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, transportation, things of that sort, everything.
Yeah. Okay, well, are there any other questions, guys? I think we're running a little dry on questions here. But here's one thing I really want to talk about because people don't understand this. So when we talk about these like assisted living facilities, right? We're not talking about some like big commercial property, right? We're not talking about some like commercial zoned property. We're talking about residential properties. Correct. So the city where I own my rental property, Livermore, California, right? There's tons of these single family homes, big ones, right? That have like 5 bedrooms, and they're just regular residential single family 5-bedroom homes that some of these operators have converted into assisted living facilities, right? And that's why it's so interesting. But I was talking to Rekesh about this, and the name of the game is really is economies of scale, right? And so I was talking to Rekesh and I was like, hey, should I do this? Should I do a facility that has 5 beds, 4 beds? And I have a 3-bedroom house in Livermore. I was like, should I do it with a 3-bed? And he's like, the numbers just don't work, right? There's just no economies of scale when you're doing 3, 4, 5 units. And he was saying, the numbers just work so much better out when you are doing 10 beds or 15 beds, right? But the thing is, California only has, like, by default, you can only do 6 units. And so what Rekesh has on his property, what that makes it special is a special use permit, right? It's like basically an exemption to that rule that allows him to have more than 6 units, right? And I don't know how you got that permit. I think the previous owner passed it on to you, right? And that was like a big part of why you pursued this deal, right? Because if it was 6 beds, I don't think you would have done it, right?
No, right? Sure. Yeah, that is one of the main reasons. Yeah.
The reason why I make it so important, I emphasize that this is a residential property, but the valuation, once you get this thing up and running, is it's going to be valued like a commercial property now, right? And so, like, what does that look like? What does it mean to be valued as a commercial property? And like, you're also building this business, right? So you're not only selling, if you were to exit later, you're not only selling the real estate, you can also sell the business, which is grossing like $100,000, net profiting like 40,000. I mean, that's insane numbers. You can sell the real estate and the business separately. What does it look like if you were to ever sell this thing? Like, how does that play out?
I mean, I've already gotten offers by, some of our neighboring properties to say, hey, because they know that I kind of live far, and they're like, hey, if this becomes too much for you, we were looking at this property also, but we stopped looking at it because, the license, was surrendered, but now that you're licensed again, we're back interested, type of thing. Mm-hmm. I haven't even looked at what it would be valued at, but I just talked to some other people in the commercial space, and they're like, it's probably worth $7 million as is, right? So, I mean, I don't know, but you
say these numbers so casually, just like it's not a big deal, but that's insane numbers, right?
I mean, I haven't validated any of it, but again, it's all based. Now that you're in a commercial space and you're basing everything off of net operating income, based off of what I can project or what I can do, it looks like it's around that much. Yeah.
Is that the move? I mean, that's a pretty good exit, I would say, for 9-10 months of work. I mean, have you considered it at all?
Yeah, I have. During the dark days when I had that water leak and I was just like ready to just give up, I did consider it, but the long-term play here is holding it and building generational wealth, and I'm glad I kept it. I weathered that storm, and now we have 4 residents, and it's just looking very positive. So I'm glad I went against that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's crazy that you're not even bonus depreciating it this year. I mean, if who knows if Trump gets back into office and elects to bring bonus depreciation back up to 100%, and you just have this thing in your back pocket. Anytime you have a big tax year, you just pull this thing out, cost segregate it, claim bonus depreciation, just generate like, I don't know, I don't even know how much losses you generate from this property, but you're definitely going to wipe out your income for that year. Using this property. You just kind of have it in your back pocket now, which is insane. It seems like there's not really any questions here. So I want to kind of transition to closing it out here. So the thing is, Rekesh, you mentioned that you're going to quit your job soon. What does that look like right now? Like, how are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I'm really happy with my job and the people I work with, and it's a very rewarding type role that I'm in. I've been with the company 24 years, and they take care of me really well. So yeah, financially, it's nowhere near, what I do with my real estate things, but it also gives me, satisfaction daily. You know what I mean? I like the people I work with. So I don't know. I've contemplated it. I just don't know what else I would do, if I
you're definitely set. You're good to go, but it just seems like it's just hard to pull that trigger. I mean, you've been there for 24 years. It's like part of your lifestyle now.
It is, yeah. And I mean, could I do more real estate deals? I probably can, but based off of my portfolio, it's like, do I really need to do any more? Also, like, there's a lot of things in your head, right? That you're
like, you can start a YouTube channel and teach people how to do this kind of stuff. I mean, you'd be a great teacher. I mean, it's hard to get Rekesh even on these calls because he's like private. He doesn't even want to send me a thumbnail of his photo or anything. Like, he doesn't want to be on YouTube. He doesn't have any socials, guys. Like, we're not going to plug him or anything like that. He's just like this random dude who found me on TikTok, reached out to me. I thought he was going to ask me questions, but he ended up teaching me more stuff than, I taught him, because he's like 10 steps ahead of me or much further. So, you know, I'm really glad to have met you through TikTok, and it's one of the main benefits of having a TikTok account. You get to meet all these cool people. Last question here about the assisted living. How active is managing assisted living facilities, and are there companies that run it for you? Maybe you can talk a little bit more about your like employee structure and like what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, you can be involved as much as you want. You know, originally I was going down the path around me having to do all of this stuff, and you know, I quickly realized that I wasn't prepared for it. So prior to me acquiring this property, I actually got my administrator certificate. It's like a 80-hour course that you need to take and an exam, and I was the one going to be like doing all of this. Um, I then realized like I didn't want to do all of that. And so then I hired a facility manager with experience. So this person had their own facility back in the day. They know all the rules, and I needed somebody that had knowledge in this space. And so essentially, you know, hired them to be my boots on the ground. And also considering I live 5 hours away, I was like, there's no way that I can make it for all these tours and all these things, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I mean,
there's ways around also arbitraging your property as well for the company. So I think that's the second part of your question is like you could buy a place and have it ready and then just rent it to somebody that wants to run a business out of it. You know, you could do that too.
Yeah, for sure. I realized quickly, like one of the main benefits of assisted living is that like your gross income is so high, your margin is so big that you can hire that extra layer of management and still run a profit. Whereas, you know, short-term rentals, the management fee for short-term rentals, if you hire a co-host, is like 20%. But the thing is, like most of the Airbnbs that some people start, if they do a mediocre job, I mean, their profit margin is 20%. And then you hire a property manager for 20%. They take 20% off the top. You're left with 0% profit, right? And so that's why it's a little tough, right? And so I think the reason why we talk about assisted living is because the margins are just so wide, right? That you can hire that extra level of management. So I think that's one of the reasons why I think you really pursued it, right? Is really just because of that.
And just one thing to keep in mind, and just be fully transparent and real with everybody here. Not every facility can charge $9,500 a private room. Like you have to have a luxury all-in type facility that can do that, and you also have to be in an area that demands that, right? So I based my numbers and my math off of what my competition was charging, and I already knew they were at $10,000 a month for a memory care facility. So I knew if I came in a little under that I would be competitive. If you go down to like certain parts of, you know, San Diego or certain parts of California that aren't as high end, like you could be charging $5,000 or $6,000 a bed, right? So it all has to be perspective on what your competition is doing and how do you stack up to what they have. So
and this is in SoCal, guys. Like people say don't invest in California, but like I think you were mentioning this, right? When you were choosing a facility, you were looking at Las Vegas, Arizona. But like, what did you tell me about California? You said something really profound. You said something about, you know, just the rates are just, you know,
the rates are super high. Like if you try to do the same model in Las Vegas, you'd be lucky to get $5,000 a private room. Yeah, you could do 10 right off the bat because their rules are flexible. But yeah, you're not going to get $9,500 a month for a private, right? So because care is expensive over here, and you know people recognize that, and that's why that happens.
And there's a lot of rich people in California, so they're good for it. Well, I think that's all the questions that we had. Thanks again, Rekesh, for coming on. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Hopefully, we'll have you on again in the Henry investor community. Like I said, guys, if you guys are in this call, if you guys are watching this whole guest speaker series is kind of part of my Henry Investors community on the school platform. So if you guys are interested in joining that community, it's going to become a paid community soon. And so the only way you're going to be able to get access to these like candid guest speaker advice from these, you know, successful Henrys is to join the Henry Investor community. So I hope to see you guys inside. And I think that's pretty much it. Any closing thoughts with that? Maybe any last tidbit of advice for all these Henrys who are looking to do their first deal here?
No, I mean, I know it can get discouraging and, you know, figuring out where to start, but, you know, again, don't blindly follow what I'm saying here or even what Michael's saying.
it's very aggressive what you're doing, but it's a one
Yeah.
and done type of deal, right?
Yeah,
So
like you have to be willing to put in the time and effort,
right.
you know, and you have to set up, you know, your regular job has to be flexible for you to be able to do this type of stuff. So you gotta everyone has their own kind of plan, and so you gotta kind of do what works for you at the end of the day. There's no
Right.
blueprint. Like I can't give you the keys to figure out how to make it happen. I can just kind of advise on, you know, things that may work, and it's up to you guys to kind of look into it a little bit more and research.
Well, thanks so much again for
Yeah.
joining, Rekesh, and hopefully we'll have you on again soon, and you can give us more updates on the assisted facility, and maybe by then you'll have like 3 of them open. Who knows?
Oh, we'll see. All right. Thank you.
The long sigh. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rakesh. See ya.
Thank you guys. All right. See ya.